Just a quick note to say we are recording this session. If you don't want to be in the recording, if you could just move yourself behind the camera, and then we won't. Fabulous. So welcome to our Fringe event. My name is Jo Douglas Harris and I am the Women's Engineering Society Cluster Coordinator for the Tyne and Tees region. We're really excited to be here today, partnering with Engineering Together and also the Engineering and Manufacturing Network to run this event. So today we are talking about increasing the size of your talent pool and plugging the leaks. You may have heard about the leaky pipeline before. So what that is in I think STEM careers, we see that we lose women and other minority groups in much bigger percentages at each decision point in their career, right through from school all the way through to kind of managing, directing positions. And we really want to see what we are doing and what we can do to try and fix those leaks in that pipeline. So today we are going to focus on reaching more people, recruiting effectively, retaining, and then also returning to the STEM workplace. So with that, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker, Alex from STEMazing, to talk us through reaching more.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Knight. I'm the founder and director of a company called STEMazing, which is a not-for-profit all about getting more women in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, maths, more women in STEM role models out to young children to help inspire them to grow that talent pool that we are all trying to recruit from into our STEM industries. I'm an engineer myself, so my background is in mechanical engineering. I worked in mechanical engineering for 18 years before I set up STEMazing. And in my career in industry, as I'm sure you're all aware, I was extremely cognizant of this issue that we've got about not being able to increase that gender diversity particularly, but also other areas of diversity as well in STEM. And through the work with the Women's Engineering Society and the work I did as a STEM ambassador and also mentoring and coaching other women along the way, I sort of started to realise, I suppose, some of the fundamental barriers that I was seeing. First of all, personally myself as a woman engineer, but also with other women that I was trying to encourage to do more STEM outreach and go and actually inspire and engage more people, boys and girls, to consider engineering as a career. Started to see some of those barriers and some common trends with women not feeling confident or competent enough to be seen as a role model and go out there and actually be the one standing up in front of others talking about themselves and their career and representing the world of engineering. So these kind of seeds started to sow in my mind of, well, I can do something about this. I've grown my own skills and confidence with public engagement over the years. How can I help others? And that's why I set up STEMazing. And when you look at the stats that we're still facing now, with £1.5 billion it costs the UK economy for the STEM skills shortage. And we've got something like, I think we've grown to about 16% women in engineering now. When I started in engineering, it was like 8-9%, so it's definitely improving, but it's not improving fast enough for us to be able to see a real change in that pool of talent that we can all recruit from. So my perspective is we need to do more to reach the young children and engage the young children to be able to sow the seeds of change in their young minds, and then of course reinforce that throughout their educational journey. Now, when I was in industry, we did quite a lot of STEM outreach in the companies I worked for, but we tended to target secondary school, colleges, universities, because that's the immediate pipeline, and that's great. But sometimes that's too late when we've missed changing some of those gender stereotypes in particularly girls that are already ingrained by the time they're at secondary school. So there was some research that helped form the basis of STEMazing when I set it up, showing that children as young as 3 to 5 years old already show less support for counter-stereotypical STEM career choices, like a girl wanting to be an engineer. And anyone that's got kids, I'm sure, will know, or worked with kids, there are these stereotypical kind of choices that kids make about what is a girl's toy, what are girls' colours, what are girls' clothes. And that is ingrained so young, and certain career choices are gendered so young. So I think it's so important that we get visible diverse role models for young children to help reach that audience and sow the seeds of change at a really young age. And so any women in STEM that are working in your organisations or in your network, encouraging them and giving them the skills and support to be able to be more visible role models, and give them the time as well. I think that's super important, will probably come up in our discussion, to make that a business priority for reaching young children. In my opinion, that is fundamental to making a shift change in what we see in our diversity at the moment in our industries.
Brilliant, thank you so much. What we're going to do is hear from all of our panellists, and if you have any questions for Alex, if you could save those and we'll come back to those in the Q&A at the end. So next up, we are going to hear from Lauren from Jackson Hogg, who is going to focus on recruiting more effectively.
Nice to see you all. I'm Lauren McFan, Associate Director of HR Partnership at Jackson Hogg. Jackson Hogg is an outsourced people services business offering recruitment and HR services to STEM businesses in the North East, in the UK and beyond. My interest as an HR person is usually in supporting employers in STEM businesses who we know are trying to fill thousands of jobs which they're just not able to at the moment. We know that there's a skill shortage, we know that we need to be looking much further back than at the point where putting adverts out online. But often the work we do is to support employers in thinking about recruitment in terms of attracting a diverse set of candidates and focusing on accessing a broad range of talent as possible, and then also the process that they go to actually select people once they have gone through. So coming to a couple of statistics, there's good evidence that men will apply for a role where they meet 60% of the criteria, obviously meet 60% of the criteria, and women are often aiming for close to 200. So even before somebody's applied for a role, there's a set of people who are actually self-selecting out of that process in the first place. So I think a lot of the work we do is to help employers work out how to write a job advert that's that's inclusive, that is speaking to lots of different people, and that we're not just always recruiting in our own image, and that's so important. I think one of the things that is often feels obvious from the point of view of somebody writing a job description is to just write this massive long list, shopping list of things that really would mean that the person who can do that job is actually a unicorn or somebody else that just doesn't exist. So I think there needs to be more of a focus on writing job descriptions that are realistic, given given who would be happy to come through the door and interview and assess and actually appoint as being appropriate for this job. I think there's quite a lot of work to do in coming back to basics and not arbitrarily putting a number of years on a job description which will disadvantage younger people, and not using gendered language which will put certain groups of people off, not talking about native speakers when we're asking for people with English skills, talking about fluency rather than being native, not putting job adverts out that I'm sure maybe industry would do that say if you've got time and limited right work in the UK, don't apply. There's all sorts of things that actually we just need to be really interrogating the attraction process and the selection process, which are separate. Yeah, of course, interlinked. That's me. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks. Next up, we're going to hear from Paula, who is going to be talking about retaining more people.
Thanks, Jo. So my name is Paula McMahon, and I work for St McAlpine. And for those that don't know, we're one of the oldest UK construction companies. And for those that don't know, although in the STEM industry, 16% is approximately the number of people in the industry. In construction, on the tools, it's less than 1% of females. So we're one of the industries that has the biggest gap to fill. So what do we do to retain people? Because there's no point, you've inspired them at young, you've got them through the door because you've dealt with the biases that everybody has. And then we've got them in our workplace, brilliant. But as Jo's outlined, we have a leaky pipeline and we're losing people left, right and centre. Mostly because of the way that we work, the cultures that we work in. So things that we do at St McAlpine, we have affinity groups. And we do have the gender equality group, and it is a equality group, it isn't just for women, which a lot of people assume it is. I co-chair that group. We also have a LGBT plus group, and I sit on that group as well as an ally, because allies are by far our biggest tool in our box. So those that's in underrepresented groups, those they're the people that do lots of the activism, a lot of the talking, but actually they're not the ones that are necessarily listened to. So the allies, the ones that actually the others will listen to, are the real diamonds. And we have some of them diamonds in Sir Robert McAlpine, where we've got people that do help others in other groups to actually get us to where we need to be in an inclusive workforce. Health and wellbeing is a massive thing that we're looking at Sir Robert McAlpine. I was very lucky as part of our gender equality group to champion putting in place the very first menopause policy that we had. It was just something that people didn't even realise that we needed one. By the way, menopause affects 52%, directly affects 52% of our workforce, because that's the 52% of our society, because that's the percentage of women, but it actually affects 100% of people, because who doesn't live with, work with and correspond with somebody that fits into that 62%. Within the workplace we've challenged language, so we've had toolbox talks on things like gender neutral language, which Lauren was talking about, because a lot of people don't realise how much they actually do have embedded in things. That the chairman of the group, he will do this. It's an assumption that already the project manager, that the CEO is a he. If anybody's interested, I've actually got some of these. There's various things that people can actually share to say what is acceptable language and not, and you wouldn't believe some of the things that people still say in the workplace today in STEM and other environments. Within Sir Robert McAlpine, we've done training, and we specifically target certain training. So we've had like leadership programs where haven't inappropriately chosen females to be on that, but we actually went out and did a campaign to say, do you know of any potential future leaders in your team that could go on this, especially if they are in a group that maybe they wouldn't think about it because they're maybe not so confident, and maybe they need that little bit of a leg up. And then they went through the same process as everybody else to be judged on the same criteria. We're also concentrating on the middle management as well, for things like telling them about menopause training and things, because that's where lots of things stop. You have the people at the top going, we really want to do this. You have people at the bottom saying, we really need to do this. And then you've got the people in the middle going, oh, isn't it just too hard? So they're the ones that we need to actually get. And at Sir Robert McAlpine as well, we've also been working with Mother Hooker, I say that very carefully, to look at flexible working. Flexible working is a massive game changer for many people, especially females that have a disproportionate amount of the work to do at home. I wouldn't necessarily say a disproportionate amount of the work to do in the workplace, but maybe it is in some places. So I'll leave it at that.
Brilliant, thanks Paula. And our final speaker that we're going to hear from is Ian from the Veteran Skills Academy.
Afternoon everyone, and I am Ian, I am from the Veteran Skills Academy, and I think I'm also representing the gender balance on the panels. I'm feeling incredibly empowered. And to be fair, it's also, I'm really lucky to go kind of last, because listening to all of the content you've already heard from the previous speakers, it really shows there's a big job to be done in terms of building the range and depth and diversity of the workforce, not just in engineering, not just in STEM, but across significant sectors of our society. And also following on from one of the, if you like, the grandee companies of manufacturing and construction, I'm talking about a group that's based down in Newton Aycliffe that technically won't start trading until the beginning of October. It's about 3-4 weeks away now. But the idea we've worked on has been 3 very, very long years in the making. The foundation of our idea is that we will be working with the Ministry of Defence, and we will be working directly with potentially anyone who is at least a year out from leaving the Army, the Air Force or the Navy. And that's effectively allowing us to go down pipeline to have up to a year to work with somebody who they know within that year will be back on City Street. And we've had a number of meetings, including with ministers, where there's a tacit recognition that the offer currently available to people demobbing maybe is no longer fit for purpose. And in particular, we were saying it's not stretching enough. You're simply assuming that because someone's been in the army for 10, 15 or 20 years and you've put them in that role, that's kind of the limit of what they can achieve. And what we've done is, in the 3 years, we developed links with employers in the renewable energy sector, the nuclear sector, the MOD's own supply chain, to name but a few. And we're now in a position where we have approximately 400 vacancies that these employers have said we're really struggling to, and it includes anticipation of impending retirements rather than vacancies that are here today. And they've said, yes, we like what you're going to try and do, please go ahead and give it a go. And we will be focusing on, yes, Army veterans, or Navy veterans, or veterans generally. Of that cohort, we reckon at least 20% will present with some kind of injury or disability, including a physical disability or a mental disability. We estimate that perhaps as many as 20% of cohorts could be women. We will be carrying out very detailed aptitude tests as we are introduced to people, so that we can ensure that the people we do go on to train in welding, in fabrication, in plumbing, in electrical work, are actually going to be capable of doing that job and doing it to a high standard. And at Newton, where we're going to be based, the companies that we are working with who want us to try and fill the jobs have been incredibly generous, and they've given us donations of kit and materiel that is estimated at maybe just over £300,000, which if we'd had to buy it, probably means we'd never have got off the starting line. But it means we can now focus on the resources where we really need them, which is to buy in very high quality trainers. So if we get the assessment centres right, if we do the initial training right, and if we then ensure that as people go through our process and they become qualified in welding, fabrication or whatever it is, that we can present to industry people who are indeed very job ready and who already have perhaps a 15, 20-year track record of excellent, hard, dependable work, but who probably have another 20 to 25 years of similar work ahead of them that could be in the engineering and manufacturing sectors. And as I said, we launch in about 3 weeks, and so far it's, fingers crossed, almost ready to all systems go, and we hope that you will be hearing more from us in the future.
Brilliant. It sounds like a really great interview style. I think we'll all probably want to watch your progress with interest. So with that, we will open up for questions. If anyone in the audience has a question, just pop your hand up and we'll see how many we can get through. Okay.
Lauren, was it? So, I've read loads of job descriptions. I've never come across one that's saying it was a man or a woman. Do you have any particular examples of how that can be?
I can understand why. I think it's probably a lot more subtle than you might expect.
Okay.
So if you, my challenge to you is when you go home tonight or tomorrow to get a job description from somewhere, maybe one from the construction industry, for example, and put it in a gender decoder online, and it'll tell you whether it's balanced one way or another. So it might be that the words are strong this or influence that. Strong is usually a word that is attributed to men, or direct, or any examples, Paul?
I've got a brilliant example,
Go on,
but not of the decoder, but of
Right.
something else.
Okay, in a job description?
Yeah, do you want to?
Go on then.
Right, so here's a prime example. So there's a local company, I won't say who, that was looking for somebody in their team, and they particularly wanted them to be, they wanted to adjust the balance in their team, and they wanted it actually to be a female candidate. So they actually wrote a job description that was the polar opposite of, and somebody looked at it and went, you can't do that, that is just, you've actually specifically said we want a female, and that's discriminatory. So they said, right, fine. So they actually wrote a job advert that said, are you returning to work Do you find that, you know, you want to sort of get more involved and actually, you know, get out of the house? And then they also, as well as that, which appealed to many people that were sat at home probably, who just had children, they also actually advertised it in places like Mumsnet. And surprisingly enough, they got many, many female candidates. Now that was far more obvious, but there is, but also they had male candidates applying as well, because there was also male candidates, whether it be veterans or long-term sick, or they've decided to take a trip around the world or whatever, or they've been had caring responsibilities. So a whole bunch of people that actually appealed to, but that was very gendered in the other direction.
And it's pretty
However, the people that applied were men and women.
Yes,
So
but predominantly women rather than a few men, right? Whereas the strong, assertive.
So women can't be strong and assertive.
Not at all.
No,
It's that the evidence.
I don't mix things up.
Because women are definitely assertive. But it's that those words, when candidates read them, the research says, see words like strong, assertive as male-oriented words versus words like empathetic or developmental or cooperative, as
appeal to women. So it's almost like a subconscious thing. You don't necessarily know that you're reading that and going, oh, that job advert's for a man. You just don't put yourself forward for it. I think I'm not going to belong in that role.
So if I wanted someone who was assertive, what female words could we use?
For what reason? For what reason?
Like if I wanted someone that gets the job done, I would say you need to be assertive, like to put your point across to make sure things are done. What would be a different way of...
What about clear communicator? Something like that?
And maybe that's the kind of thing you would assess in the interview rather than needing to put in a job advert, possibly.
And I always think that you're best off actually relating these to a task. So what's the task that you're talking about? So why do they need to be that assertive or the word, right? So it's actually that you want them to give clear boundaries to your client, or you would like them to push forward on a project regardless of the barriers that's in the way. You can make it task related rather than personality related.
The stuff around gendered language, it's really subjective, and it's just a small set of signs and symbols that go along with a whole host of other signs and symbols, like looking on a website and seeing a load of pictures and thinking, well, there's nobody there that looks like me, I'm not being represented. Or they're asking for 10 years of experience and I'm 4 years out, but I've had some really substantial experience there, but that arbitrary number just cancels me out. So it's just all those little things that together will make somebody just think that's not the business for me, yet there could be an amazing performer on the start, isn't it?
I'm talking about travelling a lot and distinct working hours, when actually there probably is some flexibility in the job, but you've actually been quite about it. But they know that on a Friday afternoon they've got to go and pick up their child at 3:15. And it doesn't look like that it's going to be accommodated in any way by the job advert.
I think that can be hard in engineering manufacturing settings, because often the task sets the location, doesn't it, and the amount of flexibility that can actually be afforded. But I think we always suggest to employers that are interested in trying to broaden their horizons a little bit, to every time go back to the job description and say, well, what's actually changed since that? Has the job changed? Can you afford a bit of flexibility? And if you tried really hard, could you actually give something?
Yeah.
Someone did send me a job advert about 6 months ago that specifically had he in 2 or 3 of the points.
And I understand that.
And it was from a big global company with a site in the northeast, and I was absolutely shocked that that got through their whatever vetting processes they have to explicitly have he in there.
If you're shocked at that, just have a look in the Employment Rights Act. The default gender pronoun is he. In the Employment Rights Act. I've sent an email.
But it's so easy to avoid. Like, you can so easily replace it. It just seems mad that we're still, you know, like chairman. Like, why don't we just start using chairperson? There is no reason not to do that. So, yeah, great question and some really good debate on that one. Yep.
Yeah, if I can just it's Alex, isn't it? I totally agree with you about primary education, and I've seen some wonderful, inspirational teachers working with young kids, and they love it, and gender doesn't even come into it. but if you think that will do the job and ignore secondary experience, you make a mistake, because I think they need more help than they're getting at the moment, and I think something goes very wrong with the encouragement they give to women. And I think in particular it's about the reasons why boys do science and engineering and girls do it. And boys do it because they're just so mechanical, they take things to bits, they put them back together again, they're really good at that. Girls go into science and technology, or the ones I've known, because they want to make a difference, they want to help people. That's why an awful lot go into medicine. Now somehow we've got to work with secondary schools, otherwise all the good that primary schools have done will be undone. And I really think we have a challenge here. And I see wonderful examples of industry going into secondary school. It's inspirational. And the teacher who was responsible for them has been in the staff room drinking coffee at that time. And it's never carried on, it dies after that. So we really have to think in your profession about getting more girls into science, getting more boys into science as well, but we need to think particularly about gearing it up to why girls want to do this. And I've spoken to hundreds, and that's why they want to do it. They don't want to do it for the same reason. Not many want to be astronauts, but an enormous amount want to work on drugs that can cure incurable diseases.
No, I completely agree with you, and I'm all for STEM interventions at the entirety of the educational journey. And what I found when I was in industry was a lot of our STEM outreach was targeted at secondary and sixth form colleges and universities, because that's more the immediate pipeline into business, and less was done at primary. So, you know, the fact that engineering isn't even mentioned in the primary syllabus or curriculum, yet they're learning maths and science, but they don't make the connection that these two things are the toolkit to be able to do engineering. Teachers don't know, primary teachers don't know what engineers do. There's lots of research about engineering in the UK showing the lack of understanding of engineering and anything applied sciences by teachers, and therefore as well children and also parents. So there's a lot that us as industry role models can do to help support schools at all levels. But the reason why STEMazing focuses on primary is because not enough is done at primary, and that we need to sow the seeds of gender stereotype change early, so that when you get into that secondary level and girls are self-deselecting for things like doing the Triple Science Award or going on and doing technology or design technology, we need to sow those seeds of change early. But I completely agree with you, it needs to be continued, it can't just stop at primary.
And just one sub-question to that. I know that T-levels are now beginning to, and good, I think there's some already where I live, starting this September, that they've got them up and running. And it requires teachers to spend at least 20% of their time in industry. For teachers, for some teachers, that will be the first time they've ever been in industry. But it also requires the pupils. And I just wondered, from your perspective in industry, how are you going to use the teachers that come into put 20% of their time in the week to?
I mean, I'm probably not the best person to ask that. Maybe Sir Robert McAlpine might be getting involved in T-level stuff. So from my experience of having talked to people who are involved in developing T-levels and also some teachers about it, it's a fantastic thing, because you're right, awareness of what engineering is absolutely the first step. But we need to be able to support the teachers with that, with their time, and with it, making it a meaningful experience when they go into industry, absolutely. And we need a lot more companies to sign up to that scheme to give them the opportunities, because there's not enough at the moment. I think that's going to be one of the big barriers, actually, companies signing up to supporting students and teachers on T-level schemes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just, I mean, I work with small businesses as an SME business consultant, and some of them are engineering businesses and some of them are tech businesses, and so I see this problem all the time, and there's a big recruitment problem, and then there's a big a diversity problem as well, and it does frustrate me. I was in a business session this morning, and somebody, a lady who was on the panel with me, said, I looked at working for a particular business, and when I looked at their website, there was 25 40 to 50-year-old white males across the entire, and she went, I probably can't work for that business. So then, you know, genuine barriers. it's a really challenging problem, but I think for me, a couple of you have mentioned it about role models, and you know, a friend of mine is a woman and a STEM scientist, and her daughter is totally into engineering and went on created her own robots and did the whole competition and everything, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. But I think it's because her mom is in STEM. So there's this clear link with role models. So I suppose my question stroke challenge is, how do we get businesses to engage? And surely the people who are working in these industries at the moment are the role models that we need to bring out and get them in front of, you know, primary school children, secondary school children, or across the way. How do we really get that engaged? I mean, it's probably quite a big effort, potentially some investment and money, you know, to get this done.
I'll briefly answer, and I'm sure others want to answer as well on that one. So this is exactly the reason why I set up STEMazing, because I feel like we need more support to empower the women in STEM that we do have to be more confident, visible role models and get out there to then hopefully create that snowball effect of getting more in. The phrase "you can't be what you can't see" is so true. We need those role models in our classrooms, in our media, you know, on TV, in magazines, in books, and it is getting better, but it's still not fast enough. So when I was trying to encourage women that I know in my engineering network to go out and do more STEM outreach, there were the barriers like, I don't have the time, you know, I'm too busy in my job, my company won't give me the time off work to do it, I don't know how to speak to kids, I don't know how to run practical activities with kids, I don't have the confidence. So I am supporting some of that problem with STEMazing and giving women the tools and confidence they need to be more visible role models, but we still need industry to take this as a business critical issue and say, I must give men and women the time to go and inspire young people, be that primary, secondary, in our business communities. We do quite a lot of STEM outreach online as well, and we reach schools that are the other side of the world, in Africa and all over the place. So there are so many ways you can make a difference, but you do need, first of all, the belief that you can be a role model and make a difference, some tools to help you do that, and the support of your employer to give you either the time or flexibility to be able to make up the time so you can go and do that in school hours. And so that's one of the big things that I find really progressive companies that care about this mission of diversity and inclusion are seeing the value in giving their staff the support and time to go and do this. And then it benefits them because not just the pipeline, but the confidence and skills their employees gain from doing experiences like that. And I've seen it countless times, hundreds of times, women who've never done STEM outreach go and do it and come back and say, I remember why I love engineering, and I feel more confident, I speak up in meetings more, I value myself more as a role model. It's endless benefits. We just need people to take that first step and go and start doing it. I don't know if anyone wants to add to that.
I was going to say, from a sort of my point of view, we actually do give our staff 4 days volunteering a year, and we can do that. In terms of sort of STEM outreach and things, we actually encourage all of our graduates to become STEM ambassadors. And there is plenty of ways that people can get involved in being a role model, regardless of whether it's gender, veterans, in any sector whatsoever. There is literally loads of ways, and you don't have to always go and put yourself in front of an audience. It can be a matter of filling in forms and actually having an online presence. There's lots of different ways that you can actually do it. It's a matter of spending the time to look. Yeah.
I was going to say, Veterans Skills Academy, we're actually, because you said you're a business consultant, we've actually set up as a social enterprise. We're a community interest company. And fundamental to that is how we give back to the community. And one of our trainers is specifically with, and she understands this, she is a woman, and she is specifically going to be targeted at that kind of community outreach because she has a very interesting story. She used to be a professional racing driver. She's tested for Formula 1 teams. She's got connections with the sort of the Formula 1 engineering supply chain that we'd love to have. Well, we've got them now because she's working with us. And for us to be able to put her effectively out there and say, hey, I can do it. Yeah, it's maybe an extreme story of maybe being on the real technical edge of engineering, but she can actually say to an audience of not just girls, but anyone who thinks, I'll never make that. And she can actually say, you know, this is where I started, this was my relatively very humble beginning, this is the hard graft I had to do to get there, and yes, by God, if you're in the motor racing world, there is a lot of sexism and misogyny and all of that, so you've got to be even tougher than you might think to rise above all of that. But she said, I made it, this is what I did, this is how I did it, this is sometimes what you have to be able to withstand. You do have to be, in a non-gender way, you do have to be quite robust. You have to be strong within yourself, you have to have that self-belief. And as and when we get going, I hope that within, say, 3 or 4 months of actually opening the doors, that programme will be ready to roll out. It's really, it's actually really important to us. And the fact that we have I think an excellent female role model to lead on that is like,
Alex, I wonder if I can come back to you on the point you were saying about employers having to give women the time to do these things. On the sort of flip side of that, does anyone on the panel have any thoughts on kind of the opposite issue, where an employer kind of wants to roll out their sole woman every time they have to have photos taken, or they want a woman on a job interview panel so that it shows the company's diverse, but then it's a big strain on that sort of sole individual. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Like, there is a burden on people in the minority to solve everyone's problems. And yeah, we can't always let it fall to that. And I think that's where majority allies come in as a support network 100%. We need it to be a team effort. It can't just be the one woman who's, I don't know. I always used to get asked to go and sit on interview panels, so it looked like we had a woman in the team who was, you know, when we were recruiting people to show we had diversity. I enjoyed doing that, that was great, but it became too much, and then you can't focus on your day job enough. And that's the thing you're getting paid to do. So there is definitely a challenge with that, and it has to be a balance. And I say to a lot of men ask me that, well, how can I be a better support and be, you know, help with this diversity challenge, but I'm not that diverse role model that you're talking about. I said, well, still, absolutely, we need you. Go and talk to kids, inspire them, but also when you're talking, give examples of the women that you work with, show case studies of women doing the kind of projects that you're doing, and make sure that you're showing there is gender balance, it's not just all about men, because that's what the kids are seeing. So yeah, there's definitely ways it needs to be a team effort, for sure. But I also feel like we need to support the women. If they are keen to do it and they want to do it and they can see the benefits they're going to get out of it, then support them to be that role model.
Okay.
For me, there's a lot of focus on the companies helping schools and things like that. But there's no one more passionate than parents. And yet, I've got a 6-year-old, and the schools never reach out to. You see it on American TV shows where their parents come in and talk about what they do. There's never been anything like that I've ever heard of in the UK. And you know, really, schools should be speaking to their, you know, the people that they send us all these newsletters about whatever fate's going on. But actually reach out to the people that's the parents, and what do you do? We're looking for people in STEM companies. And
my daughter's school does that.
Do they?
They do STEM parenting, and then anybody working in science, technology, engineering, and maths can come in. They do a full afternoon, and they do presentations on what their job is.
So that's fantastic.
I had to go into my kids' school to say, can I please do some free STEM sessions as an after-school club, because they didn't do anything like that. So they didn't request it. I had to go and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this, I don't mind giving up the time. And then I also offered to go and do an assembly. I mean, it's kind of like part of what I do now, so I could make the time to do that, but I would really recommend you put the offer out there.
I mean, I think if the school asked me if I was involved in, you know, engineering, or if I was an engineer, but if the school asked me, said, look, we're looking for this, I'm sure if I went to my company and said, the school want me to go and do a talk, they would just say yes. I think most companies would just say yes, because it's your child that is asking you to come in. So I think there needs to be more emphasis there, 'cause that's great with that school, but all my other friends, their school, I've never heard of that.
There is a reason behind that, and it goes probably more than 10 years now. And in one of my previous careers, I used to run something that was called an education business partnership. And the reason EBPs worked is that generally they were based around the local education authority, which effectively ran most of the schools. But in the last sort of 10, 12 years, whatever, we've seen more academy schools set up and more independent schools set up. And the school networks have therefore become very fragmented. And I kind of took my business out of that world, because instead of having that sole point of contact to go to the LEA and say, cascade this to all your schools, please, we've got businesses ready to work in any one of them that you like, suddenly you're chasing 6, 7, 8 different academies. And the logistics at our end just didn't work out. We didn't have that kind of marketing and promotional capacity to actually go and knock on all the doors. And as a direct result to that, not just the EBP model I was working with, nationally, many EBP models just fell apart and they've never been replaced. And a lot of academies, although you might say, well, we're a specialist school in science and engineering, you've got a decent chance that they'll have some industry links. But if you're in a design academy or an arts academy or a sports academy, your chance, it's a bit like tumbleweed blowing across the playground. It's unlikely that you're going to find anything of substance.
I would say there's 2 easy fixes. One is if you want to go into your child's school and speak to your child's teacher and ask who's the careers leader and make the offer. The other thing is if you want to go into any schools, whether as an individual or as a company, join the STEM Ambassador Network. Literally type into any Google search or any other searches that are available, become a STEM Ambassador, it'll pop up. Follow the links, it's very easy to do, it's free. They will do a DBS check and they will do an amount of free online training as part of the sort of onboarding process, a couple of hours, which will tell you a little bit about safeguarding, how to communicate with students of different ages. You get your police check and then you can search for things to say which schools are after people to come in on various, some of them are topic related, some of them are quite general, or you can actually put on, and you can put out offers to say I'm prepared to go and talk about working in space or the engineering network or wherever it might be, and you can actually put offers and then teachers will come to you and you can geographically filter it and things.
Yeah,
If your if your business is part of the North East England Chamber of Commerce, they run this kind of scheme, and they have people assigned to different schools who go in and spend time and build up those relationships with businesses. So that's worth.
I was going to say as well, in addition to that, the LEPs, the local enterprise partnerships, so they have great links between, I mean, I think that's kind of their job, linking business to schools, colleges, so whatever level of education you can go and help with, that's between businesses and schools. So the local LEP, the North East LEP, is fantastic for doing that, and they run events where they kind of try and get networking and connect businesses and schools up. Yeah, so as an individual, becoming a STEM ambassador is a fantastic way, and you only have to do, I think it's like one event a year to keep your membership, to keep your STEM ambassador thing alive. So it's a minimal ask, really.
So I work for South Tyneside Local Authority, and we have a school engagement programme currently, and we have a lot of businesses who are really keen to be involved and to go into schools. We have the Enterpriser Network that you were referring to, and that the LEP have lots of different programmes. The problem we have is that schools tend to be incredibly busy, they tend to have a lot of different priorities, and they don't have time to organise it. So we've got the businesses there, we're in touch with the schools, but actually that coordination piece, that bit of administration piece is the bit that's letting the whole process down. Simply due to lack of resource within schools, lack of time within schools, and yeah, that sort of coordination. So I don't know if anyone has a sort of a solution to that.
It is patchy, there's no doubt about it. There's some schools that are constantly on various different forums, whether it's North East Chamber of Commerce, the LEPs, the STEM Ambassador Network, that are always doing something, and are always asking for something and always saying, will somebody come and do that something. They're the ones that have got dedicated time,
Can I just say, schools get paid to do that. They have budgets to do it. They take the budgets. So why don't they do it? I think if your companies had money to do things and you weren't doing, questions would be asked. We don't challenge that. I've done a lot of Ofsted inspections, and they tell me they haven't got time, they haven't got the people, but they take the budget. And they have roles they're paid to do. That needs to be known.
Did you?
Sorry, I think that gentleman's been waiting a while.
So one of my roles is I'm director of the Advanced Manufacturing Forum, and I agree with pretty much everything everybody's said on the panel there. I think it's everyone's responsibility, and it's schools. I agree. Some of the schools don't have the time or the effort, or put some of the effort in, but it's a parent problem, it's a school's problem, it's an employer's problem. And the employers in our network would be very, very keen to take on more females, for example. They would be very, very keen to get involved in anything where they can find talent. So going into schools, one of the challenges that they have is time themselves, because from a Jackson Hogg perspective, we can't get enough applicants applying for jobs in the first place, so that then adds to the challenge on resource to go into the schools. One of my big beliefs is that we need more around STEM and so on to encourage more apprenticeships and get more apprentices, T-levels, apprenticeships, and that will help solve some of the issues that we have. I find that there are a lot of networks working themselves trying to solve these problems. As the North East, we need to come together, and everybody needs to be aiming and going in the same direction to solve these challenges. Engineering is a big thing, but it's the same in the finance sector, it's the same in the tech sector, and so on. So fundamentally, it's everybody's responsibility. Young teenagers, the people who they hate most in the world at some point are the parents and the teachers. The ones that they listen to most in all the world are the parents and the teachers. So we need to get parents and teachers saying exactly the same thing that we're saying in this room. And that's the fundamental problem as far as I'm concerned.
Very well said.
Yep, shall I go now? Thanks. Just to say, I've travelled up from West Yorkshire, so I don't know the situation around here. I'm representing a local manufacturing line, so it's very similar to the engineering and manufacturing network, and it was Ailsa that suggested we came up today to have a look at what you're doing. So I'd just like to say what we've done in our area. So we're a very small membership organisation, only charge £120 a year for our manufacturing members. But back in 2018, we decided, wouldn't it be great, because of the skills that we could see was coming, wouldn't it be great if we could showcase some of our members? So we hired somewhere in Huddersfield and somewhere in Halifax. We got about 20 odd of our members to come along, and the main thing was bring something that these young people can see, because they don't understand what manufacturing means. Yes, you could be an engineer, what's that? And so we trialled it in 2018. We've now run 5 live events. We get about 250 students and teachers and career advisors coming through. We encourage the businesses not only to bring something tangible to show what they do, but also to bring young ambassadors so that they can talk to the young people about what they do. Because of the pandemic, we obviously couldn't have a live event in 2021. So we decided to launch an online platform, a website. I'm saying we did this. This is with 0 resources. We don't get funding. But we managed to get a developer who was prepared to work with us. We launched Make It in Manufacturing. We branded it and everything. And we've had a website ever since. In order to get the students and the teachers to look at the website, when everything had gone online, we decided to have a design challenge and have some really good prizes. So we just got 4 or 5 of our members to put in an iPad, a tablet, those sort of a speaker, nice prizes that the kids were interested in, a prize for the school that had the best quality entries. The last one, I'm just about to go award the prizes next week. So it's all been done on very, very low budget. One of the winners, I sent the copy of what she'd submitted through to the company who had offered the prize for that, who's actually a glazing company. And absolutely fantastic was his words, and he said she could be a drafts person with the entry, and I'm going to take her round that company, meet them. So we're doing all of this. We're supported, the people from the local authorities work with us upon it. I don't know if people are aware that secondary schools have the Gatsby benchmarks, so they absolutely now have to start engaging with companies and show that they're doing it. So that's really important. And we're keen not for it to be just STEM and the academically able children, but also the ones that like taking things to pieces and show them that there are roles for them as well. So we want it to be both. And every school, I believe, I can't remember the technical term, but every school on their website has to show the name of the person responsible in the school for engaging with businesses. And I just forget what the actual name is, but that all schools have that, not primary schools, I don't think the senior schools. So there's an awful lot that can be done, but it's, like you said, it needs somebody to bring it together, and that's the role that we've done in West Yorkshire by bringing it together.
Yeah.
Just, that sounds, I mean, that's amazing what you guys have done. I've just written a note down to go and have a look
Make
at
it
the
in
website.
manufacturing.
Okay, yeah, that sounds incredible. But you know, just something like that. Surely there is a template that we can use that is successful, and then just apply that process and make it easy. Because you know, talking about schools, I'm chair of governors of my local primary school, and that they are extremely busy. But as this lady rightly said, that they're supposed to be doing this and supposed to be engaging. And I think the challenge for me is that often the word Ofsted was mentioned. Schools are really forced down this curriculum route, and it's battered into them by Ofsted, and actually it's not really fulfilling the needs of STEM and of diversity in the workplace, and it's just not doing it. So I think we just have to take a risk at some point. If we've got a successful model that we can adopt across, you know, maybe even just 2 regions, northwest, northeast, and then let's build it out. You know, why can't that be done? And I think for me, that's really, and I would certainly take it into my school tomorrow if there was that opportunity.
So mine was more of just maybe an observation. So we talked about, obviously I wrote some of the things down that we talked about today, so I'm one of the EDI leads at our organisation. And we talked about unconscious bias, we talked about percentages, the 4% and 16%, and when you're looking at things and you think, well, that person doesn't look like me. And I'm just looking at the stuff that we've got in the room, and with the exception of this amazing, the male focus is on the poster behind you. Sir Robert McAlpine is all men. The focus on that poster there is a male. In this brochure, 80% of the people in here are white, and on the pictures that you've got, where there's men and women on the same page, the women are all looking to the man.
Very interesting, yeah.
So I just think, like, in terms of going back to basics and, you know, what you do around unconscious bias, you know, if you were to go into schools, kids are visual. They, like you say, they look at, well, I don't see somebody that looks like me. If you were to visit a school and take that to Robert McAlpine, like, you know, the stand, you know, the lad's going to look at that and go, well, you know, the women are going to look at that and think, I can do that, because they're seeing men in the photos.
In fairness, this is an awesome thing, and I do know it needs to be done. I haven't done it to do this. That is actually our workforce. We actually, the only technical person on the workforce is me, and I'm normally the one taking the photos, so therefore I'm not in them. However, this is actually presented usually by me, and so that is just, again, the harsh reality bit. The other alternative is doing exactly what Alex said, which is you're all the single black lady in the company out every single time, and she gets absolutely.
But when you're saying about giving examples and case studies,
yeah,
that shows, you know, there's women that work here, there's people within all of these different groups that work here, but we're not showing that.
No.
It's so interesting you make that point, because I think that's why panel discussions like this and talking about it is so important, because it brings it back into your consciousness, because all of us have unconscious bias about what an engineer looks like. And so you don't necessarily challenge it when you see it, especially if you're busy part of your day job and you don't necessarily challenge it, but it's when you have these kind of discussions and then you just need someone in the room who probably is a woman to say, well, why are there no women on this picture here? But even
it's not just about the women, so
no,
I completely agree. 3 flyers here in this brochure, you know, if you add them all together and the people in it, over 90% are white.
Definitely, but what we are talking about is that these industries, these businesses all want better diversity, better representation. So worse than given a poster or a document like that where you don't necessarily see the representation, are the businesses who have loads of pictures on the website but none of those people work there, that all stock images and say things that they don't do, the disingenuous businesses. At least if you look at that and you think, well, it's not as diverse as I would like, it's the reality and it's a starting point and it's a business that wants that for itself versus the lip service.
No, I agree. It has to be. So this is why I've taken over the EDI part of our organisation. So it's not a tick box exercise, which really frustrates me. But when we, like you say, the reality of it is, if you want to see, if you want to inspire younger people to do it, it has to. And I appreciate it has to be a reality. You can't just falsely advertise that you've got, women working in a business where you don't. So it would be falsely represented if you were to just, go in that picture and get. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be where you want to get to, and just, it was an observation.
No, it's so refreshing, that's what we need. We just call it out, say it as it is.
I think it goes further though with that, to filter down to your hiring managers as well, and giving them that training, because I'm also in recruitment, and I remember a while ago there was that piece of research that had been done where foreign nationals were deliberately changing their names to have British names, and they were being contacted with a British name, but with their foreign, with their name, they weren't being contacted. And that is down to the hiring managers and the people who are being trained in your organisation as well, which I think there's a massive gap in that. There's like the top, the chief execs leaders might be all for it, but what are they doing with your middle managers further down who aren't really that bothered, may not be aware of what the aim is. So I think it goes further as well internally.
I mean, I'd say one thing generally, really quickly, just to pick up on the sort of passion and feeling in the debate about working with schools and training and education and everything else. And that is, don't be afraid to be a disruptor. Because I was saying how we contacted the MOD, the guy who's just packed in as the Secretary of State, Ben Wallace. It took us 9 months to get to his door. But we were never ever not going to end up at Ben Wallace's door. We just had to be prepared to stick at it and get there. And a lot of what we're talking about can only really be tackled, if you like, quite a strategic level. It's great if individual companies or sectors or pressure groups want to do something. But if you want that sustained shift, never be afraid to tackle politicians. Because we live in turbulent political times. And if you don't beat the path to their door now, when they're desperate for friends, there has never been a better time to go and talk to them. You have Ben Houchin down in Tees Valley, who's the Tees Valley mayor, and he has oversight effectively for economic development. And the core of Tees Valley's economic development is engineering and manufacturing. So you're all automatically talking his language. There's about to be an election for a similar position to cover Northumberland and Tyne and Wear and County Durham. Who knows who that will be? But again, a key part of their agenda is going to be driving the economy. And in the northeast, if we don't drive manufacturing, if we don't drive innovation, we lose our USP. So if you can't go and have those conversations now, you're never going to have a better time. And don't be afraid to go and have them, and don't be afraid to get pushed off. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, I was just going to follow on from some of that, talking about unconscious bias, about hidden agendas and barriers and so on. I work for an organisation called Injust, and we do work with probation. So we're working with 18 plus males who are either coming out of prison or serving a sentence in community. And we are tasked with working with these ex-offenders, getting them the training they need and supporting them to get into jobs. And we have massive barriers from companies where the HR policies are so old and dated and don't reflect current experiences today. You're talking about pipelines of people being lost from various manufacturing companies and so on. Just to give it some perspective, we've got 1 in 3 males in the UK has a criminal record. So look at how many people are in the room here and think about how many that could be. Over 8,000 people will receive a conviction this year that will never become spent. Some of the application forms will say, do you have an unspent conviction? A lot of our guys have to declare, but as I say, there's over 8,000 people just this year that will get an unspent conviction. Okay? 61% of prison leavers reoffend within 2 years. However,
this drops to 19% if they're in employment. But only 17% of ex-offenders get a job within 1 year of release. And that's a massive barrier. We're working with guys, we're building up their confidence, we're getting their skills ready, and then they hit these barriers where they can't even get past the application form because they have to tick a box and they're automatically screened out. We're working with guys who have had jobs in engineering, manufacturing, some quite high up jobs, and because of an incident, a situation, something that could happen to any of us, they've ended up with a conviction that might have ended up in jail, and now they can't get back into role. They've got all those skills and that experience, but there are barriers stopping them getting back in. There's a massive workforce that's being missed out here, and I just felt it needed to be said.
Right. And also, what employers need is to get good quality HR support from somebody who can say, why are you asking those questions? Are they actually relevant in the job? Why is your onboarding process stopping all of these people even just being able to make an application? Employers also need to understand the difference between positive discrimination and positive action, because that's thinking of them as the same thing actually does nothing for anybody. Nobody wants to be put in a room thinking, oh, I'm the person that's just being wheeled down here and nobody really cares about me at all. That's why employers, these are all different parts of the same puzzle. It's a collective effort and it's a long game, and it's everybody's responsibility. But I think we'll have to start challenging ours, even just if it's a starting small, what's your application form? If I sat with an employer who could have jobs for the type of people that you're talking about, who have got all those skills, and I said, why are you asking that question about unspent convictions? Don't need to know. Well, the role's it's not relevant to the role. Imagine the doors that could open. Imagine the lives that could change.
That's a big conversation I have with lots of employers about the types of convictions that they won't allow, and we all know what they are, and we all know what media portray. And I wasn't from justice when I came into this role. I've worked in lots of other roles, and I only ever knew what was in the media about some of the convictions, and I always thought of the extreme. But when you break down some of these convictions, you find out what they've been given as a label, and it has no impact in some of the jobs that are being applied for. But employers are terrified to take people on if they've got certain convictions, and that's another huge barrier. And that goes for women, not just men as well. I mean, obviously we only work with men, but Changing Lives work with women in the North East on the same contracts.
We've talked loads about the impact managers can have on making hiring decisions and being able to make that link between this person and the job, which they can absolutely do. I think there needs to be more around upskilling managers, because actually they are the conduit through which people have that relationship with work, and they've got a lot of decision-making power, and they're busy, and they're unsure, trying not to say the right thing and saying nothing and making it worse.
Can I just make one point? I really do appreciate what you were saying about employers and maybe some of the higher echelons of who make decisions, and your point about what Ofsted can do to a school. If you look at what Ofsted's ultimate target is, it's to get good results. That's what we judge the schools on. So the schools teach to the syllabus. They teach to the good results. You can get good results and have a quarter of your pupils that are not getting any. It won't make much difference. You're still up there. Why don't we change it to something like every child will leave this school, secondary school, on a pathway to further higher education or into work? And you would see the whole emphasis change overnight. One of my close friends started off down in mine. He was a pitman. He's now a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. Another one broke out of school in America, went into waiting and all kinds of jobs in shops and cafes. He's now been on the International Space Station twice. How did they turn their lives around? It can be done. If we change the emphasis, results are important, but every child's future is important, and you made a really good point.
What a lovely note to end on. So I think we'll wrap up the discussion there. If I can just ask everyone to put their hands together and thank our amazing panel. We do have a stall in the skills zone, which I think some of the speakers are going to head back to. So if you want to follow up and have any, ask any other questions or have any other discussions,